Wanda has been arrested. The Democrat operative who was caught on camera allegedly stuffing ballots in Bridgeport, Connecticut last year was charged with unlawfully possessing another person's ballot and witness tampering.
Well, you've heard it over and over and over again. There is no voter fraud in America. We have the safest, most secure elections anywhere in the world. That's why we were shocked to see Jesse Waters last night deliver this report.
Wanda has been arrested. The Democrat operative who was caught on camera allegedly stuffing ballots in Bridgeport, Connecticut last year was charged with unlawfully possessing another person's ballot and witness tampering. But this has nothing to do with her alleged stuffing in 2023. This goes all the way back to 2019. Wanda was arrested for ballot fraud in the city's 2019 Democrat primary for the same candidate she helped elect in 2023, Mayor Joe Ganim. Wanda's accused of filling out someone's absentee ballot, telling them to not vote in person, and then asking them to not tell investigators about what she said. Wanda isn't the only Democrat arrested for fraud. 3 other Bridgeport Democrats were charged. One of them's a city councilman. Wanda's been suspended with pay from her city job for months. She works for the front desk for the mayor that she got into office. Fox 61 reporter Matt Caron paid Mayor Joe a visit today. Watch this.
We'd like to talk with the mayor about some of the city workers being arrested for election fraud.
Hi, I'm Lonnie. I'll be right with you.
Thanks.
We waited. Fast forward. Mayor Ganim didn't want to talk to us, but his 2019 and 2023 mayoral opponents did.
I always felt like I had been cheated. I didn't know the depth of it.
We caught it live on video directly from City Hall. The players and the actors remain the same.
Both Marilyn Moore and John Gomes say they believe they should be occupying Bridgeport's corner office.
Well, actually, I'm going down to City Hall and tell Joe Ganim, get out of my chair.
Candidates were cheated. Voters don't trust the system. This is why you need squeaky clean elections every time. We need every Wanda locked up before November.
Yeah, he's 100% right. And for those of you who are saying, well, okay, well, at least we got some arrests here. That means the system works. The rule of law works, right? They cheated and they got caught. All right, let's just be clear here. Did you notice kind of an intricate sort of little quirky thing about that report? How 2 different candidates thought that they were the ones who got cheated here? Now, how is that possible, right? This was an election where one side has been caught stuffing the ballot box. And so what, the other 2 were a Republican and an independent? Is that what happened here? Is that why both of them feel like they got cheated? No. No, this is an important part of this story. Both of those other candidates were also Democrats. See, this is Connecticut. Only Democrats are going to win the mayor's race in a city in Connecticut. So the real race happens during the primaries. See, those 2 candidates, they were competing against the incumbent mayor in a primary election to figure out who the Democrat nominee would be, who eventually would be the winner because Democrat Party control. So you get it, right? The only reason why we know about this, the only reason why there's been a prosecution, the only reason why there's any acknowledgement of voter fraud here is because the people who were complaining about it were Democrats. The victims were Democrats. If this happened in a general election and a Republican complained, he'd be arrested for insurrection. That's how it works, guys. The only time we're ever going to see anything in this country about exposing voter fraud is if a Democrat is on the losing end of the election. And that's exactly what happened here. We've seen the video. We've seen the fact that this person stuffed the box. You know, there was a time when this couldn't happen because you had to show up in person on election day, show your ID, and there were multiple eyes in the room watching you vote so that no shenanigans can take place. But over the course of the last several years, Democrats have decided that the best way to hold an election is via remote, via mail, when no one's watching, except, thank God, this one security camera where this one ballot drop-off box was. And there's another jurisdiction run by Democrats where there were also huge outcries of voter fraud. And in this case, nothing happened. This was in California. This was during the recall election for Gavin Newsom as governor.
Court and Rick, this is quite a story. Good question. What is going on? We spoke with several concerned voters here in the West San Fernando Valley who believe something wonky had been going on at places like El Camino Real Charter High School in Woodland Hills. This place opened up as an early polling location, open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, but several people tell us they showed up to vote this morning in the special California governor recall election and were told that computers showed they had already cast their ballots. So what? Staffers, they say, were apologetic and helpful, but those voters we talked to are extremely concerned, suspicious, and wanting answers. California native and current West Hills resident, 88-year-old Estelle Bender, spoke with us just a short time ago.
What happened today and how shocked are you?
Very. I went to El Camino High School to vote, got there at 10:30, gave her this, and she scanned it and said, "You voted." And I said, "No, I haven't." And she said, "This has been happening all morning." The man next to me was arguing the same thing. So as I left, I did the provisional ballot and left. I was just really angry. And I saw two women walking toward me as I left. And I said, "Don't be surprised if they tell you you've already voted." And she said, "They've already done that." If I voted, how did I vote?
And who did you vote for?
Well, I asked the couple, the young women that I talked to, and I said, "Are you by any chance Republicans?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, so am I." And so are the two friends that had the problem at VFW. So.
Makes you suspicious.
I would think so. And still, I'd like to know how I voted.
All right, take a look. The LA County Registrar's Office released a statement tonight following our inquiries. A spokesman says the voters who experienced this issue were offered and provided a provisional ballot.
And they said that the equipment was faulty and we've replaced the equipment and everything's fine, so pay no attention. And of course, Gavin Newsom, well, it wasn't even close. He won in a landslide, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Move along, everyone. Just move along. You didn't hear much about that story, did you? Well, there have been stories like this locally, and you can trust local news way more than you can trust national news based out of Manhattan and Washington, D.C. And the stories are there on a regular basis. And here's the real problem. It's echoed perfectly by our colleague, Dennis Prager, in a column at Town Hall this week. Yesterday, in fact, why American citizens mistrust election results more than the citizens of any other democracy. This really is fundamentally the problem, even more so than voter fraud. I know that you probably see stories like this, and you think that the real problem is that cheating is going on, and Americans are being denied their vote, and that the real winner is kept out of office, and the system is rigged. And listen, you may be right about that, but I think right now, the biggest problem, truly the biggest problem in all of this, is that none of us believe our elections are valid. See, for the democratic process to actually function properly in a constitutional republic that uses democracy to select our representatives, for it to work, we all have to have confidence in the system. If we don't, then it's chaos. And this has been a growing problem for years, and nothing is being done to fix it. And what's really, really frustrating is that we all know how to fix it. And the fact of the matter is, there's only one political party in this country who at every turn resists obvious, well-known election security protocols. That's the Democrats. Every time you propose anything that would help secure our voting systems and give the American people confidence that our elections are not rigged, Democrats accuse you of racist voter suppression. Now, Dennis Prager, after pointing out the fact that in Europe, multiple countries just had elections and one thing was the same across all those nations, nobody claimed that they were fraudulent. Nobody claimed that the elections in Europe were rigged. Now, some might say because conservatives did well this time around, and it's only conservatives who ever complain about it. But of course, we know that's not true. And the fact is, for all the elections leading up to now in Europe, when the left wing did well, the right wing, the conservatives, did not say this is fraudulent because they actually have protocols in place in Europe, protocols that we would envy and the Democrats in this country would call racist voter suppression. Let's scroll down a little bit here. Dennis Prager, the column's up right now at townhall.com. America is almost alone among democracies in not demanding that voters provide any identification when they vote. For some reason, the American left vehemently opposes voter ID. It claims voter ID is racist and that those who favor it are engaged in voter suppression. This is prima facie absurd. Are airports racist for demanding passenger identification? Does passenger ID result in passenger suppression? The most plausible reason the left opposes voter ID is to enable some degree of voter fraud. That's right. Go back to that California primary there for a minute. Think about it for a second. In California, the voter turnout is probably about the same, probably even less than most other states because it's a one-party state. I don't blame Republicans for feeling like there's no reason to vote in that state. So let's say they've got 35% turnout. That's probably generous, right? And of the 35% turnout they have, only about 30% of those people who turn out to vote are probably Republican, right? So think about that for a second. 1/3 of the registered voters actually show up to vote. That means you've got a vast majority of registered voters, especially registered Republicans, who you can roll the dice and suspect, yeah, they're not going to show up. They're not going to vote. So the odds are very much in your favor to just cast a ballot for them. Who's going to know? There's no voter ID with those drop boxes. There's no voter ID for mail-in ballots. Hell, there's no voter ID when it's 3 p.m. and the polling place is empty and nobody's looking. Let's just start checking off these Republican voters. They haven't shown up yet, so they're probably not going to show up, and we'll just vote for them. That's why when Republicans show up to vote, suddenly they find out, what do you mean I've already voted? I'm right here. I haven't voted. How did this happen? It must have been a machine malfunction. Now, listen, the scenario I just painted for you could have happened. There's no evidence that it did happen. But the fact that it could have happened is the problem. Because after the election occurs and you hear one or two anecdotal stories about that, you suddenly become suspicious and you suddenly think that the whole system is rigged. So even if it's not happening, a responsible state, a responsible government, a responsible constitutional republic that wants to assuage the fears and concerns of the populace will put protocols in place where they can say it's impossible, that sort of thing will never happen. And yet we don't. Back to Dennis Prager. If that is not the reason, voter fraud, isn't it enormously irresponsible to cultivate doubts about election integrity among half its country's citizens for no valid reason? Moreover, in no other country does its left oppose voter ID. That's right. America is almost alone among democratic countries in not requiring paper ballots. As of 2023, only Brazil counts all its ballots in national elections through electronic voting. According to Pew Research, votes are cast by manually marking paper ballots in 209 of the 227 countries. In France, as reported by the Associated Press, voters use the same system that's been used for generations: paper ballots that are cast in person and counted by hand. In 2009, Germany's Federal Constitutional Court ruled that voting machines could no longer be used. In 2017, the Dutch government announced that all ballots on the 2017 general election would be counted by hand. And guess what? In those countries, they actually have the election results within 3, 4, 5 hours of the polls closing because they take this seriously. You should read the whole article at Town Hall. But the bottom line is this: you get in trouble if you even make oblique suggestions that there may have been voter fraud in this country in the past. I mean, unless you're Hillary Clinton or Jamie Raskin or Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden or Al Gore or Terry McAuliffe or Bill Clinton or, well, you get the picture. You get in terrible hot water and you're called many nasty names and you end up on the FBI watch list for some reason or another that doesn't this time involve going to the traditional Latin mass. But let's be real here. Whether there is voter fraud or whether there isn't voter fraud, the majority of the countries on this planet, and I mean the vast majority, like over 95% of functioning democracies or countries that use democracy to elect their representatives like ours, over 95% of them have hand-counted paper ballots where you have to show ID to vote. And those countries all have one thing in common. They don't have people who walk away at the end of election day with a shadow of doubt whether that election was legit or not. And we, the people of the United States of America, what's supposed to be the shining beacon of freedom and liberty, self-rule, and a constitutional republic that utilizes democracy, we deserve at least that. And you have to ask yourself, why don't we have that? Why don't we follow those same basic protocols? And the only conclusion you can reach at this point is that those who are keeping us from having that peace of mind, those people want us paranoid. They want us angry. They want us divided. It serves them. And that's despicable.